I'm sure you know about the blackface character.
Yes.
They call Zwarte Piet.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
If you go back to colonialism, slavery, that period right after that in America, which we call Reconstruction or the Civil Rights era, you will see that white men and women made a living by projecting very satirical, sarcastic, insulting, and derogatory images of black people as a way of conditioning white people into how they wanted them to view and react to us. We have to be clear. When white people paint their faces black, they're doing that to insult African people, and they're suggesting that we are less than human beings by virtue of the fact of disguising themselves as us and then clowning us in satirical prose as they do this. So this is a very racist thing. It cannot be defended or justified as a custom. Because if you're telling me that you have a custom that is based on racism, and then at the same time you tell me that you are a post-racial people, then you are a hypocrite. It is no way that here in the Netherlands, the white people can claim to be progressive and post-racial if they have a holiday where they dress up in blackface. And mind you, they dress up in the blackest face of all. And they do that to draw a distinction between us and them. And the underlying message is that we as white folk are the most humane people here in the Netherlands, and black folk are the most beastly, because we do not all come in black skin. Yes, that's the original melanated complexion of our ancestors, but now in modern times we come in all colors, light brown, dark brown, so forth. So why don't you dress up in the various variations of brown? You only use the pitches of blackness, because in white cultural reference, black is the color of evil. It is the color of negativity. It is the color of oppression. Now for us, it is a color of divinity and power, but for them, it is a color of negativity. So the reason they intentionally make themselves super black face to celebrate this ridiculous holiday is to try to increase the power of the insult that they're making about black people and our lack of humanity. It is something that the government here needs to outlaw. It is not acceptable and it is not excusable, and no civilized people would condone a custom or a holiday that allows any race to dress up as another race and then poke fun against the race that they're trying to imitate. It is totally disrespectful. If black folks dressed up and put on white faces, there would be outcry. If we put on Jewish faces, there would be outcry. If we put on Anglo-Saxon faces, it would be outcry. If we dressed up and made ourselves look phenotypically like the Asian, there would be an outcry. But it's okay for white people to dress up in the blackest of black skin with big red lips, poking fun at the phenotype of Africans, showing how different it is from Europeans, so as to say we are abnormal and defective. And it's okay to do that. That's not acceptable. And if the government of this country claims to be a civilized government and a respecting government, they should do something about that.
What do you think about people that, white people that want to fight against the system?
I welcome it, but they have to fight amongst themselves. If a white person is interested in destroying the system of white supremacy, then work within your own race to destroy it. You don't have to join my organization to fight against white supremacy. And the reason why I don't want you in my organization isn't because I have anything personal against you, but I understand the conditioning of the white mind, and I understand the conditioning of the black mind. And white participation in a black organization can lead to black apathy, because we have been conditioned to look at them as our saviors. So if you have a black organization with white participation, subconsciously, without even realizing it, we will start deferring to the white folks to give us the solutions for our own problems, because we have already been taught and conditioned over centuries that they are the smarter ones and that they have the solutions. So they have to understand that the reason why we don't want you in our organizations ain't because we hate you. I don't teach hate. And we as African people have never stood on the foundation of racial hatred. We are not bigots, and you cannot fight white supremacy by practicing black supremacy, okay? But we need them to understand that you cannot be here because our people are not psychologically mature enough to see you as something other than the saviors that we have constantly been taught that you were. The other thing too, white people have to understand their own arrogance. They have been conditioned that they were superior. So just like we will look to the white member of the black organization for answers and look at them as being intellectually superior, they will also see themselves as intellectually superior. There's no way a white person can be amongst a group of blacks who they have been systematically conditioned to believe are inferior and not think that they have a right to lead us. And if you study the history of white participation in black movements, Europe, Africa, Asia, America, anywhere you go, you will see at some point there had to be a splitting of the black revolutionaries from the white revolutionaries, because the white revolutionaries set themselves up in a maternalistic or paternalistic organizational leadership dictatorship that sought to tell black folks how they can solve their own problems. So they cannot be amongst us because we have issues of depending on them and they have issues of thinking it's superior to us.
But that's the problem, because people, if you're a strong black man, you're like, yeah, I want to build my own organization with my black brothers. And they instantly think that we discriminate or hate them. But that's not even the issue.
That's because every race on the planet knows that black organization is a threat to every other race's progress in the world. Why? Because we are the children of Africa, and Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. And because Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth, the Arab needs Africa to stay backwards. The East Indian needs Africa to stay backwards. The Chinaman needs Africa to stay backwards. The Anglo-Saxon needs Africa to stay backwards. When they see you organize, they get anxious, because they don't know if maybe this might be the organization that picks Africa up off her knees. And if Africa gets up off her knees, guess what? Europe might end up on her knees. Asia might end up on her knees. Africa is the only continent that could survive self-sufficient without any need to borrow any raw resources from any other continent on earth. It's the only one. Every other continent on earth needs Africa. That's why they need her to be backwards, so they can exploit the resources for pennies and then sell it back to Africa for billions. So we are a threat because upon our oppression rests the economic dominance of the world. Upon our oppression rests white supremacy. Upon our oppression rests the march of Chinese progress. Everybody knows that if Africa stands, the rest of the world has to sit. And so you have to make sure the children of Africa are disorganized. Because if we stay disorganized, they never have to worry about Africa coming to power again. Not anytime soon. And the other thing we got to recognize is that Africans outside of Africa might have to play a more key role in Africa's progress than those on the continent. Why? Because we have the money, and we have the education, and we have close proximity to the Europeans who are doing Africa in. So the reason why black people are made to feel guilty organizing amongst themselves is because everyone else is anxious about our ability to help our mother continent pull herself up by her bootstraps in the 21st century.
Wow. That's deep. I want to ask you a final question. Maybe you can go into that. The word Negro. What do you think about that word and what it carries and the weight it carries?
I think the only proper way to refer to ourselves is as African people. I think anything else is a takeaway from our need to identify with our mother continent. As the late great ancestor, Pan-African nationalist scholar Dr. John Henry Clarke said, whatever you call yourself should connect you to land, history, and culture. There is no Negro land and there is no black land, but there is in Africa. So I'm not a supporter of the word Negro or of the word black. However, we have to meet our people where they are. In the 1800s, the 19th century, most black people were called Negro and they identified with Negro. And for that reason, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey named his organization the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And African Communities League. And we'll be celebrating 100 years of that organization this summer. Mr. Garvey wanted to use African only, but he had to use Negro because nobody would have paid attention. Negro was the universally accepted term. It wasn't accurate, but it's where our people were in terms of their consciousness. Right now, across the world, black is the accepted word. Is it accurate? No. They should be identifying as being African, but they're still stuck in not wanting to identify with the continent of origin because of the menticide and the propaganda that has been told to us about Africa. Naked people running around eating each other. So when we hear Africa, we think up and drum up all the negative stereotypes of the continent. So we would rather identify with a color, with an adjective, than with a continent, which is a noun. So I use black so people know who I'm talking to. I might say African American so people know who I'm talking to. And so I think that it's important that we meet people where they are and grow them slowly. For example, I'm a Pan-Africanist, which is the highest level of political identity because now you identify with your people. But a lot of our people are not there. They're not even African yet. So you can't take them to Pan-African, you see. So you meet them where they are and we have to grow them slowly. We cannot outpace the people because we'll lose them.
Yeah.
Find them. When I travel the world tonight, I'm going to be able to assess for myself the political consciousness level of blacks here in Amsterdam. Tomorrow, I'll be able to assess the political consciousness level of blacks in Rotterdam because I got to meet people where they are. So there's certain things I can't talk about because you cannot feed a baby solid food. You got to give them milk. If you feed them solids, they might be traumatized and never eat again. So you got to meet them where they are. A lot of people ain't ready to deal with white supremacy yet. A lot of people ain't ready to deal with the fact that biracial relationships is not in our best interest. Although the children of those relationships are just as African as the rest of us. But we have to stop the practice of mating outside of our race and giving our melanin to the women of other races. Melanin is our gift from God. That's our black gold. That's our spiritual molecule. That's ours. Why would you invest something so priceless as melanin into someone else's womb other than that of the black woman? Some people ain't ready for that conversation because most of us were raised by parents who were what? Post-racial. We were raised by parents who were totally politically integrated and had no racial consciousness whatsoever. So I don't blame my people for not being conscious, but my job is to try to wake them up. But I also understand that we won't be able to wake up everybody. Not everybody's going to go along for this ride. The European has so conditioned black folks that a lot of us are totally loyal to the system of white supremacy. And we're loyal because we don't think it can ever be changed. So we're loyal to it. So I'm not trying to bring every African to this struggle. I'm looking for the ones who can be salvaged, and I'm looking for the ones who are already ready. That's it. Because if you engage the wrong African about Pan-African organization, they will kill you. They will hurt you. They will sell you out. They will turn you into the European himself. So you got to pick and choose who you're going to struggle with because a lot of our people are so full of Willie Lynch, that you won't be able to do anything else with them. So you got to pick and choose who you're going to organize with. But we want to stress and stress and stress again to African people and non-African people. But we want to be clear to non-African people that we're not going to waste time trying to prove to you what we are and what we're not. Okay? Pan-Africanism is not a movement of racism. It is not a bigoted movement either. Okay? It is a movement that seeks to reconnect African people and take our mother continent back because Africa is for the Africans. Africa is not for the Europeans. Africa is not for the Arab. Africa is not for the East Indian. It is not for the Asian either. You can come, you can visit, and if you're going to show respect, you can stay. But understand, this is not your continent. If you are in Africa, it is by privilege. But we have a right to Africa. Africa is for the Africans and it is not for anyone else. And that is our pledge. And we do not apologize for being unapologetically African, no more than the Jew apologizes for being an unapologetically Jew, that the Chinese man never apologizes for being a Chinese man. And we are not going to apologize for being selfish and exclusive about Africa being ours. So we say that to say that if any non-African is sympathetic to our plight, we respect that. But if you don't like a word of what Dr. Umar Johnson is saying, I could care less. I'm going to do the work that I have to do, even if the opinion of every European on earth was to the contrary. Because I have ancestors who are relying on me to do this. You have ancestors who are relying on you to do this. Marcus Garvey didn't spend his time thinking about what white people thought. Frederick Douglass didn't spend his time thinking about what white people thought. Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral, they didn't spend time thinking about what white folks thought. They was too focused on what they had to do for their people. Revolutionaries have to sacrifice their good standing in the eyes of others if they're going to make progress. If you're trying to help your people, the last thing you can try to win is a popularity contest.